Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is the case of Adrianne Reynolds. She was a 16-year-old teenager that was murdered in Illinois in 2005. This was a suggested case by Sarah, so thank you for that. I appreciate any suggestions you guys have, and of course if you have any more, please do let me know and I will eventually get into doing a video on them. Adrianne Lee Reynolds was born on the 12th of September in 1988 in Kilgore, Texas, where she actually would live most of her life until she reached the age of 16. Her mother actually sent her to live with her adoptive stepfather Tony and her stepmother Joanne Reynolds. This was in East Moline. Her mother had her reasons for doing it, you know, the pair were having some issues and their relationship wasn't great, so she just sent her to live with her dad. By all accounts, Adrianne was very out of control. By the age of 12, she had been to rehab, she had tried to take her own life, and she also had charges of assault against her name, so it's safe to say that her mother struggled with her. And I presume, I don't want to put words into anyone's mouth, but maybe she was hoping that her father could do a better job of trying to control her or teach her, or I don't know, get her under control, I guess. Again, I don't know what her reasons was, but that's just my assumption. Despite all of her issues and troubles that she was having in life, she was this beautiful girl that had this big dream to go into the Marines. It was all she wanted to do during high school. However, she didn't get enough credit in high school to actually be able to go on to do that, and so she started to go to this college to get these qualifications. On the 4th of November in 2004, she attended Black Hawk College Outreach Center to get her something that's called a GED. It's like an equivalent to high school level academic skills. So it's essentially another way to get them these skills to the level that you need, but when you've already left school, essentially. She was going to go to here, she was going to get GEDs, and that would enable her to get her dream job in the Marines. And when she went to this college, this is where she met a girl called Sarah Kolb. Now, Sarah would become Adrianne's best friend very quickly. They hit it off straight away. And I guess she kind of felt like she hit the ground running with Sarah because Sarah had already got this established relationship in the college. Like, she was a popular girl. She'd already built all of that up. She was a popular girl, and now Adrianne came in and she sort of welcomed her to the fold. And, you know, she's now best friends with one of the most popular girls in the school, in the college. Again, they became the best of friends. They were pretty much inseparable, and where one went, kind of the other went. You know, you'd always see them together. Adrianne's parents didn't really like Sarah. They probably judged her for her appearance, which no one should ever do, but it seems like that's what they did because she used to have a lot of piercings and wore dark clothing, and apparently they didn't like that. Anyway, as the time goes on, they grow closer and closer. They begin to have kind of a different relationship, at least in Sarah's eyes anyway. She begins to see Adrianne in a different light. Like, their relationship, she wanted more, I guess. She was developing these feelings for her, and she did actually end up speaking to Adrianne about her being bisexual, and Adrianne told her that she was bi-curious, and they would talk about relationships and things like that. I guess Sarah kind of saw that as like an open door. Like, she's admitting to be bi-curious, so maybe, just maybe, there was a chance that, you know, they could eventually get together. Opposed to her just saying, for example, that she was straight. Like, there's probably no chance of you getting with somebody that is straight, but somebody who's bi-curious, then maybe, you know, there's a slight chance there. Adrianne really looked up to Sarah. She started dressing like her and things like that. She absolutely adored their friendship. I don't believe Adrianne thought of it as more than that, or at least as much as Sarah did anyway. Sarah also had this other friend that she was really, really close to. His name was Corey McGregor, and she did plan on introducing him to Adrianne. Now, just to give you sort of a little bit of their relationship, Corey really had feelings for Sarah. He adored her. He was one of her best friends. He did everything for her. He always stuck up for her. He was literally there no matter what, and he really, really had these very strong feelings for Sarah. He absolutely loved her to pieces. More than friendship, he had feelings for her, and As a result of that, it kind of meant he would do literally anything for her. He just wanted her to like him like he liked her. Yeah, you get me, don't you? Sarah was very controlling of Corey as well, and she would be very off and on with him. Like, she'd be really nice to him at one point and then be really nasty to him. And she was very, very possessive over him too. Like, really possessive. I feel like she kind of played him. Like, I believe, personal opinion here, but to me it seems like she played him essentially. She knew he liked her, but she liked Adrianne, and so she just used that to twist him around a little finger and get him to do whatever she wanted, because he hoped that, you know, eventually she'd like him back, but she just didn't, and so she kind of twisted him around. That's what I think anyway. So back at college, Adrianne was very interested in boys, like people would be. Yes, okay, she said that she may be bi-curious, but was very much attracted to the opposite sex. And a lot of them did think that she was really pretty. There's been interviews with the guys who have said that she was a really, really pretty girl. Seeing all of this around her, Sarah becomes very jealous. So Adrianne is getting a lot of attention from the guys. She is becoming a lot more popular. And she really likes Adrianne. She wants to bring their relationship to the next level, maybe get more out of it. And it seems like Adrianne was possibly a bit clueless. I can't be certain on that. Maybe she did know how Sarah felt about her, but I just get the feeling that she didn't truly know how Sarah felt about her fully. And Adrianne was out there getting more and more popular, getting all the boys around her. And as with Corey wanting Sarah to like him, I truly believe that Sarah was out there wanting Adrianne to like her, but it just kind of wasn't happening. In that way anyway. Obviously they were best friends. She loved her as a friend, but Sarah wanted more, and I believe that Adrianne didn't. Not only that, it was kind of like Adrianne was taking over her spot. So Sarah was this popular girl. She was a popular kid, and now Adrianne had come in. She was getting all the attention. Her status was rising, and she was kind of going up the pecking order. Sarah was really well liked and was very popular, and now Adrianne, who she brought in, that was her friend, she had brought her into her fold, was now kind of surpassing her, and she didn't like it, not at all. It made her question their friendship, and she started going around telling classmates that she had to do a test on Adrianne to see if she was the girl that she wanted to become her girlfriend. So she comes up with this plan to invite Adrianne to this party in Rock Island called Party House. They go to this party, everyone's having fun and getting drunk, things that you do in a party, and then Sarah notices Adrianne flirting with some other guy. Now, Adrianne did actually end up sleeping with this guy that night. It made Sarah feel like she was losing her, and as a result of her jealousy and her rage, it kind of made her lose the plot a bit. To the point where at one stage, it was said that she pulled out a knife at Adrianne. People didn't really think much of it. Like, okay, yes, they were like shocked, but they didn't take it too seriously. After all, they were best friends, right? The next night, Adrianne actually goes down to the same house for a different party. She doesn't go with Sarah, I believe, and she ends up meeting another guy that night who, again, she ends up sleeping with. At some point during the night, Sarah actually turns up at this party, found out about everything, and she was absolutely livid. She was seething. She starts calling Adrianne horrible names in front of everyone. It gets Adrianne really upset because she's been made a fool of in front of everyone, and it's awful, and that was supposed to be her best friend. And Adrianne just ran out of that party crying. Corey ended up being the one to follow her and comfort her, and that just made Sarah all the more angry because that was her best friend, and now he's running out of there after the girl that she's just called and shouted at and argued with, and he's not sticking up for Sarah, he's sticking up for Adrianne. Corey was her plaything, and he certainly couldn't like Adrianne more than her. Oh, that was not happening. From that point on, Corey and Adrianne's relationship began to blossom. They got closer and closer and would often hang out without even inviting Sarah, so just the two of them. And Adrianne started to really like Corey. He was this sweet, gentle guy. She really did believe that she could start to trust him. I believe she actually said that he was cute, respectful, and the sweetest guy she's ever met. Obviously, this would make Sarah even more angry. Her jealousy, her rage, it was all just brewing and brewing, and she began spreading rumours about Adrianne. As you do when you're a teenager, whatever, sometimes you can share notes with each other, like you secretly try and talk in class and you chuck each other notes. That is what they did. And one of these notes, actually said from Adrianne to Sarah, "Why do you hate me so much? Why do you want me to die?" So as you can guess, their friendship at this point was just deteriorating. Then on the 1st of January in 2005, Sarah goes around school. She's telling everyone that she's trying to make up with Adrianne and she wants to repair their relationship. With that in mind, she goes up to Adrianne on the Friday and asks her if she wanted to go and get lunch with them. They were going to go out to Taco Bell and going to get some lunch, and Adrianne agrees. So this is Sarah, Corey, Adrianne, and another guy that I have yet to mention called Sean McKirtrick, and all 4 of them head off to Taco Bell for lunch. They all get into Sarah's car. The journey was apparently very awkward and like you could cut the tension with a knife kind of thing. Just really, really awkward atmosphere. Bearing that in mind, I'm gonna finish that there and we're gonna head to a few hours later. Adrianne's parents are getting really worried because she hasn't come home from school. She had also missed her shift at a local fast food restaurant that she was due to go to work that day, that afternoon. And her dad said, yes, okay, she wasn't an angel, but she would never miss a shift. So it was now 7:30 and they called the police to report her as missing. It was apparently really strange for the town. Things like missing people and things like that didn't really happen very often. So it was thought that maybe she had actually run away. Her dad disputed that though. He said that if she did run away, she ran away without her paycheck. And who would do that? She's literally got a paycheck there with money you need money to run away. I'm sorry, but you do. And so she would have taken that. It was there, it was ready to be cashed in, and she never did. So they began looking into other avenues and began questioning her friends, which obviously reported that she left school early that day to go and get lunch with Sarah. I mean, Sarah's going around telling everyone, going for lunch with Adrianne, I'm going to try and make it up. Yay. Everyone knew that Sarah was the last person, seemingly, to be with her, along with Corey and Sean, of course. An officer then calls up Sarah on her home phone to ask her questions, obviously, about Adrianne. She says that she ended up dropping her off at McDonald's, which was actually across from the Taco Bells that they went for dinner, for lunch, because it was close to her home and her dad wouldn't have approved of seeing Adrianne in the car with another guy. It's not something he would have liked to do, which he did later corroborate. He wouldn't have liked seeing his daughter in the car, and so he could understand why Sarah would drop her off at McDonald's and so that she could walk home instead of, driving her home and her dad seeing him in the car with her and him going mad. Adrianne's family believed, Sarah's story. They had no reason not to. They were best friends, and so why doubt her? The police did have their suspicions though, and so they called her again to speak to her again. This conversation went very differently. The officer asked her if she was friends with Adrianne, and she just replied no, that she didn't even like her. They then asked, why did you give her a ride then if you don't even like her? And she kind of explained this fight that they had at school early that day, how she was going to try and fix their friendship. And then she actually admitted to actually hitting Adrianne, and that Adrianne actually hit her back. Now, this conversation obviously continued, and it was a very strange conversation, and it just got the officers more and more suspicious of her. During their investigation into her disappearance, they did actually find out that the college made the students keep journals, and so, of course, they go to school, they seize the journals of Adrianne and Sarah, and in Sarah's they find some pretty incriminating stuff, like how she wanted to slaughter them all because they were driving her crazy. Those kind of things she was writing in there. It wouldn't take long for the truth to come out. 3 days after Adrianne's disappearance, Corey actually ended up asking his mother if they had a lawyer because they needed one. So I guess it was a lot easier for the police to get suspects than was originally thought. After him saying that, the police questioned him the same day. And I believe he didn't really reveal anything, but on the way home, he ended up breaking down and telling his parents that he needed to speak to the police. So his dad called them, and of course they went back to the station to speak to the police. Corey initially told a certain set of events. He said that once they pulled into the parking lot of Taco Bell, almost immediately the two girls began fighting. I don't know who started it. I assume Sarah, because Adrianne's going there thinking that she's trying to repair it and they're trying to have a good meal, and then all of a sudden they're fighting. I don't know. I might be wrong with that. My assumption would be that Sarah started it, but I do not know. Sarah, though, was hitting Adrianne repeatedly in the head, and Corey said, quote, Sarah just screamed and grabbed her hair and started whispering something in her ear. Apparently she turned her head to Corey and said, leave him alone, don't touch him, he's mine, not yours, kind of thing. Whilst all this is going on, Sean tells them to stop. Like, they're being ridiculous, stop fighting. He didn't want any part of this. And so Sarah basically just says, if you don't like it, then just go. And he does. He leaves. He gets out of that car and he walks off. Now, according to Sarah, again, I don't know if this is true because it's according to Sarah, in January of 2005, Adrianne reportedly asked Corey out, which would have angered Sarah so much, and maybe that was the reasoning for her saying that, you know, she wanted her to leave him alone. Apparently, whilst all this was going on, Corey was sat in the back seat, and then when he was asked later why he did nothing about it, he said he thought it best to let them fight and get it all over with. Corey then says that Sarah was at one point on top of Adrianne, choking her. Stupid Mike. And that as a result of that, Adrianne got knocked out and then Sarah got off her. They apparently then sit there and smoke a cigarette for a while, and when they, like, look to Adrianne, they are thinking that she is passed out, but then they see that she's actually blue. So this is a story that he told them initially, that obviously they panicked and etc, etc, but it wasn't actually the truth. What actually happened was that Adrianne ended up landing a punch on Sarah's nose during the fight that they were having. That resulted in Corey stepping in because he is, of course, Sarah's bodyguard and he will do anything for her. He stepped up in her defense, grabbed his belt from around his waist while Sarah was holding Adrianne's arms down, and then, you know, they just strangled her. Like, Sarah strangled her. I don't know who strangled her. Someone strangled her. One of them two. Yeah. So she punches her in the face, like they're fighting. So I wouldn't be surprised if she's had some punches to her nose, Adrianne. Adrianne punches her in the face and then she's strangled to death. Yeah, okay. That really is a warrant for that. It's a good... Why? Why would you do that? Nobody witnessed anything. Like, this all happened inside of the car. One person did actually walk past the car, probably saw it jiggling around, and just thought that they were teenagers in there doing their thing, doing the deed, and so they just walked on by. Once Adrianne was dead, they needed to get rid of the evidence. They needed to dump her body somewhere, and so Sarah comes up with the great idea that her grandfather has this farm and they can go down there and bury her and no one will ever find her. So they do. They put her in the boot, and when they get there, the ground is all frozen, and they try to dig it up. They cannot dig it up, and so they have to come up with another plan. Second plan? They're gonna burn her. So they wrap her up in a tarp. Oh my gosh, why? They wrap her up in a tarp, they pour gasoline all over her, and then they set her on fire. Corey was going on about how they tried to give her a proper burial and a proper cremation, and that is why they were doing all this, when we all know that he was just trying to get rid of the evidence. No body, no crime, right? After many, many failed attempts of burning her, like, she didn't burn like they wanted her to burn. I guess they wanted her to become ash or something, like a cremation, but she didn't. She didn't burn very well. And so then it was on to plan C. They were going to dismember her and hide the pieces, I guess. They needed help for this though, so the first person that sprung to their mind was a person that they didn't even really know. They knew of him, but he wasn't their friend. He was just like an acquaintance, but they knew that he liked gore. He liked horror movies. I mean, who doesn't? I mean, I love that stuff. Doesn't mean that I would do what he did. And they also knew that he killed animals around town, so obviously he's not right. So this wonderful, perfect person for this job was called Nathan Gadet. Or Gaudet, I'm not sure how to pronounce his surname. So our man Nathan over here is into all the gore and the horror again. Who isn't, right? And so he receives a call off them and they're like, hey, do you fancy helping us chop up this body? Like, I know we don't know you and stuff, but you like horror, so yeah, come help us chop up this body. And as insane as all of that sounds, what he responds with is even more mind-blowing because he actually agrees to it. Yeah, he actually agrees to chop up this body that he has had no involvement in whatsoever. He doesn't even know these people, but he says, yeah, why not? I just don't understand people at all. I just don't get what's wrong with people. If you get a phone call, right? Someone's like, hey, you want to help us chop up this body? This human being who we've just murdered? He's like, hell yeah, I'm down for that. Let's go. What? These were literally teenagers. They were 16 years old. All of them were 16 years old. They had just killed a 16-year-old girl out of jealousy and rage. And now they were like recruiting people into their... I don't know. It's just insane. And it's just so cold and heartless and despicable. So now we're on the Saturday. Sarah and Cody go down to pick Nathan up. He had his handsaw ready to do the deed. He was prepared for the task at hand. We give him that. They drive out to Sarah's grandfather's farm. They apparently smoked some marijuana before they began cutting up Adrianne's body. Apparently, whilst they were chopping her up, they had a nice chat about music, and it was to distract them from what they were doing. A lot of the time, marijuana makes you paranoid, and it can put you on a downer, so people have questioned as to how they managed to, whilst smoking that stuff, were they not paranoid that somebody would come and find them and stuff? And if you think about how difficult it is, how much work actually goes into that, it's not easy, especially with a handsaw. How did they just stand there and think that all of that was okay? It's horrific, and none of them are right in the head in my eyes. There's just something not right there. I just don't get it. Anyway, they dismembered her head and her arms. Apparently Nathan was the one that actually cut off her head, which is just, again, totally beyond me how willing he was to help. He had literally nothing to do with this until they rang him up. But he inserted himself in it from that, which is just weird. And obviously, they were the most identifiable sections of a body. So you got your fingerprints and your dental records. So they knew that they wanted to separate those from the body. And then if anyone ever found the body, it would be highly unlikely, well, not highly unlikely, but they would be hard pressed to identify them a lot more than if they had the dental records or fingerprints. And so those were the pieces that they took. They were going to separate them and hide them in different spots. They put those in trash bags and then put them in Sarah's car, and they left the other remains at the granddad's farm. They then drove down to McDonald's with Adrianne's in black bags in the boot, and they went and had some food. Bearing in mind this McDonald's was opposite Taco Bell's, where they had murdered Adrianne the night before. Having filled their stomachs and being very high at this time, they drove to Blackhawk State Park and dumped the rest of her body. Corey McGregor then led investigators to the charred remains of Adrianne Reynolds at Sarah's grandfather's farm, and the day after, he led investigators down this steep, icy path to a manhole that was covered with dirt. Inside that, they found a trash bag with Adrianne's head and her arms in, which was burnt beyond recognition. Then at 2 a.m, police had to make the devastating phone call to Adrianne's parents and her family that they had actually found her remains. On the 1st of February in 2005, Sarah and Corey were tried for the murder of Adrianne Reynolds. They were both charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and concealment of a homicide. They both, of course, pleaded not guilty, which doesn't make sense. She had this trial, but a hung jury meant that she needed another trial, which was on the 6th of February in 2006, where Sarah was convicted on all counts. She was sentenced to 48 years in prison for the murder and 5 years for the concealment. These sentences were to be served consecutively for a total of 53 years in prison. She is still serving her sentence at the Logan Correctional Centre. Corey McGregor pleaded guilty to all charges against him. On the 10th of July 2006, he was charged with 40 years in prison for the murder and again 5 years for the concealment, which resulted in altogether a 45-year prison term. He is serving his sentence at Stateville Correctional Centre. Nathan Goddett was also charged with concealing a homicide and for helping to dismember Adrianne. He pleaded guilty and was given a juvenile sentence of 5 years. On the 11th of November in 2008, he was actually released from juvie after serving 4 of his 5-year sentence. He literally sawed off Adrianne's head when he had nothing to do with it, and he only got 5 years. That just doesn't make sense to me, and I don't feel like that is enough, at all. But let me just say this. On the 16th of April in 2012, Nathan was actually involved in a car accident where he actually died. Now, I don't know if he turned his life around or anything like that. I don't know if that is possible for him after he's chopped a head off, but some people have said that that was karma coming back for him. Personally, I wouldn't like to say that. I mean, he did a horrifying and despicable thing, but I guess that's for you guys to decide as to whether you feel that was karma or not. This case was tragic. Adrianne was 16. She had a whole life ahead of her, and she was literally killed from her best friend as well, and the person that she really liked and really started to trust, who maybe they could have had a relationship together in the future if this didn't happen. She was murdered by them both, and then it's just tragic what happened to her. It really is just a senseless loss of a young life. And my heart goes out to her family. Obviously, my heart goes out to Sarah's family too, and Nathan's. I guess they never really thought that their children were capable of something like that. So you've always got to think of them as well. Like, it's not just the victim's family, but the people that actually do this and their family as well, because imagine finding out that your child, your 16-year-old little girl, has killed somebody and dismembered her and got rid of the body. It's horrific. It really is. So please always bear in mind, like, everyone affected by these cases, which includes the murderers' families. So yeah, that is the end of the case. If you have enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up, and thank you again to all of my regulars. I appreciate you so much. If you are new here, consider subscribing if you like this content. Anyway guys, that's all I have today on the case of Adrianne Reynolds. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.